Back in the 1970s, John Pertwee submitted a script to the production department called Doctor Who and the Spare Part People.
which was funny enough also known as Doctor Who and the Brain Drain.
And funnily enough, Big Finish did Doctor and the Brain Drain this year, but it wasn't the John Pertwee version. But we also did get a third Doctor writing a Doctor Who adventure this year. Tim Treloar has co-written an adventure with Nicholas Briggs called Operation Vengeance, a season 11 six-part wartime tale.
Funnily enough, yeah, it stars Tim Treloar again as the Third Doctor, John Coleshaw as the Brigadier, Sadie Miller as Sarah Jane Smith. The role originated by her mother, and Katie Manning also makes a little cameo appearance as Joe Grant slash Joe Jones in this set. So it's got quite a lot of a Third Doctor caliber behind it, doesn't it? There's a lot of
Yeah, it,
fanfare going on here for this one.
it's covering a lot of aspects of the Pertwee era, isn't it? It's covering the Joe years, the after Joe years, and of course season 11. You know, using these core characters really, and it's an interesting story with a lot of ideas. And
Hmm.
it's definitely when you start listening to it, it's not a story you expect because you start on Consomia, this quite sci-fi world and sort of where we learned that the Doctor and Joe had been there previously and thwarted the main villain of the piece, Relchin.
Yeah. And he's believed to have been dead, but there's some concerns going on there with the higher ups on Consomia. And so the Doctor's been brought back to investigate these, which then leads to a mission to save Private Grant as Railshan wants to go back in time to World War II and prevent Joe from ever being born by killing her father during the Dunkirk evacuation. So yeah, it's it's got a lot of ideas behind it, this one. And if you know much about Tim Treloar, you'll probably know that he's a bit of a war buff, isn't he? And that
Yeah,
definitely shows in this story, because I think when it is doing its World War II bits, that is when the story is at its best.
yeah, I think that's where the story really shines. I think that's where you get this nice drama because I think the Consomia stuff, it's I get what it's trying to do. I think it's trying to be sort of the frontier and space sort of political conspiracy feel. But
Hmm.
I think it's kind of at times a bit of push and pull between whether it wants to be a sci-fi romp or it wants to be this hard-hitting historical piece. Because I think it does have these hard-hitting moments with the
Really
SS,
does.
and at times you feel like this could work really well for a season 7, season 8 with that level of grit what you get here, and the themes that are brought out. And I think this is what you need when you're covering, history. You want to give, the doctors are going, these are dangerous points in history, it's dangerous and
Hmm.
all that. I think that there are moments in this story where it has the gravitas, where it really does go, yeah, these are blooming nasty times to be in. We have to be seriously careful.
Yeah, definitely so. Like it has the Third Doctor discussing this with the Brig and Sarah before they go on their rescue mission. But it doesn't just leave it at that, it proves it as well. You've got a subplot throughout this where you're following Terry Grant and his friend Bill and some other, military characters who they bump into during this chaotic time. And the way it follows them, honestly, I was more engaged with their story than I was with Third Doctor and Joe having a party on Consomia and stuff. Like,
Yeah,
this was where the good bits were. And I think not having the Doctor there really made it feel that much more dangerous. This was where you really got to explore the darker side of Dunkirk.
I think that's another thing what I like about this story that we all know about the Dunkirk evacuation, but we don't know the events sort of prior to it. I don't think we learn about that sort of side
When
in
you hear
history.
Dunkirk, you think of all the boats
Yeah,
crossing the ocean. You think of that the fighting on the beaches. You don't think of what's going on further on inland, where
yeah.
the rear guards, sacrificing their lives so that this evacuation can take place in the
So
first
that's
place.
one thing what I really admire about this story, but it's shining a light on, I guess, lesser known facts about history, really, in a way.
Hmm. and what the SS was up to as well.
Mm.
They were executing British soldiers. It's brutal stuff when it does get to go there in this story.
And you kind of have to, I
I,
feel.
yeah, and it's also nice that it isn't just a case of good versus bad. This is very much a story that is on the side of the common soldier. And, even, some German soldiers do get their moments to shine in this in a way. It definitely looks at the more morally grey area of history here, which, I think just shows how well researched this story is from Tim Trelaw's point of view. He knows his stuff when it comes to his war history, and he gets to display that fully here. And I really enjoyed that side of the story.
I mean, speaking of our common soldier, the Brigadier, the ever reliable Brigadier, this is his story, and it's so interesting having him in a familiar, setting, World War II, and seeing how a soldier of his instinct is put into these environments, and just how he deals with this. There's a bit in episode 4 when the SS is, gunning down, prisoners of war, and his instant reaction to go and help. It's so brilliant. I think this characterizes the Brigadier really well. The trauma we learn about his father, and it's just a real great story for the Brigadier and the Doctor. They are very much a double act within this. Sarah is kind of on the back burner, and that's okay because
Yeah, she gets her own little subplot so that you really get the Doctor and the Brig together to allow these two characters to shine, to explore that friendship, that begrudging respect a bit more. And there's a wonderful moment where the Brigadier gets to quote some, poetry of sorts at the Doctor, sort of using his own, his love of words against him to put a bit of a bit in there for the common soldier, really.
Hmm.
I can't remember who he's quoting here. But it's this wonderful little line about how, these good men will go out and bloody themselves with violence so that people like the Doctor can sleep at night. And
Hmm.
I think, it's a perfect exploration of the relationship between the Doctor and the Brigadier. And they really do come out of the other side of this story with a greater understanding of it, particularly on the Doctor's part for the Brigadier.
Well, it's very much you listen to me, Doctor. I've had to listen to you for all this time when we're dealing with aliens. This is my shtick now. You
Yeah.
listen to me, and we'll get through this hopefully.
Hmm.
Because there's a lot of
There are
uncertainty
times
whether
where
they'll
the
make it.
Doctor doesn't listen
Yeah,
to the Brigadier, and it does get them in trouble. Like the Brig very much gets to put his foot down and say, "No, this is, you brought me along for this.
yeah,
You're gonna make use of my military experience and knowledge." Yeah.
yeah. And your hair, you need to cut your hair. You can't have a bouffant in World War Two.
Uh,
Uh,
yeah, everything with the Brigadier and the Doctor really enjoyed, and I think that's very much at the heart of this story, alongside Terry Grant, what he goes through, all the different thoughts and feelings of the soldiers in this story. I think it's brilliant
there's a lot
stuff.
of humanity to it, I think,
Mm.
but it's not just guns blazing. There, you have the quiet moments before all hell breaks loose with pans and stuff, and
Yeah, quite a few little quiet moments as well. Some good jokes in there that don't remove the tension or anything. They're not jokes for the sake of it. They're jokes to make you feel for these characters and, to make things even more heartbreaking when they do get bloodied. Yeah,
hmm.
I think all that stuff is so well done. Something else that I think is really well done is Gareth Armstrong's performance as Vrailchan. He
Yes.
feels your typical 70s villain here.
He
And
felt very Stephen Fawn towards the end when he's getting all shouty because he's this hard light being. And, he's got this sort of Stephen Fawn quality, like a bit like Azal. And I felt like, yeah, you really get that. I guess twirly mustache villain here, really, with him.
hmm, You also get an interesting look at neo-Nazism in the way of him, where he's coming from the future and he's almost like mocking these old school Nazis in a way, while at the same time holding a lot of ideals as them. It's an interesting exploration of that concept now of, people in our modern world who will look back at Nazis as these cartoon villains while also sharing a lot of terrifying traits as them. So yeah, I think there's some interesting stuff going on with him and just this wonderful 70s-esque performance alongside it.
Yeah, talking about recreating era, that definitely felt very recreating the 70s. I mean, as a whole, Operation Vengeance, I think that it has some wonderful moments, like we say,
Mm.
but I think as a complete package, it does sort of feel at odds at times with each other, with the ideas, like you say, Konzomi, like you want to get back to the World War II stuff. I feel like you've got a really good historical drama here.
Yeah, it feels like the sci-fi stuff was more there to facilitate a Doctor Who adventure rather
Hmm.
than be a Doctor Who adventure. When you could have just had this World War II stuff as your Doctor Who adventure.
A fairly solid entry to the third Doctor adventure, I'd say.
Yeah, I think so. It does feel like a fitting celebration of 10 years of Tim Treloar as the Third Doctor, which is wild to think about. I remember
Yeah,
the first time hearing a full episode from him, I was sat in a Spanish airport
yeah.
and the three-part one dropped of, I think it was Havoc Empires on the way back.
Hmm.
And yeah, I just remember being sat around in the airport, downloading that on my phone, and then listening to it. I mean, we're not going to talk about Havoc with
No,
Empires,
no, no.
but yeah,
Tim's come a
hearing
long way
Tim
since
there, there
then.
was
It's come a long way.
there was something quite exciting, and it does feel like he has grown into the role so much, and it feels right that he does get to pen his own story here, like John Pertwee nearly did back in the 70s with the spare part people slash the brain drain.
If you want to check out more about the Brain Jane, check out our review in the Big Finish Review playlist.
Yeah, the Big Finish brain. I was going to say the real brain drain, but they're both sort of as real as each other in a way.
Yeah.
The brain drain that actually got made.
The 7-part season 7 Big Finish story. But if you've enjoyed this review, please leave a like and subscribe for plenty more Big Finish related content coming up in the near future. And we shall see you next time.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye bye.